all of you for getting out on this cold night. I just think we got more of it to come tonight, so just hang in there. If it doesn't suit you now, it'll change. Tonight we got the prayer and the pledge. It's going to be handled by Mr. JP, Mr. Bill Usry. Bill.
Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity just to represent you and represent the county this evening. We ask that you give us the wisdom that we need. Lord, help us to speak when we need to speak and to be quiet when we need to be quiet. Help us to do the county's business tonight. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill. Next thing we have is our roll call. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls. Here. Harvey Bowman. Here. Rick Cochran. Here. Robert Dennis. Here. Lisa Ecke. Here. John Furman. Here. Ann Harbison. Here. Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison. Here. Sue Madison. Here. Joel Maxwell. Here. Joe Patterson. Here. Butch Pond. Here. And Bill Usry. Here.
Quorum present. Next thing you have is the adoption of the agenda.
Move adoption of the agenda is printed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next thing we have approval of the minutes. The minutes of the January 15th regular quorum court meeting has been distributed. Are there any corrections to be made? Yes, Sue.
Thank you, Madam Judge. On page, well, let's go by the item numbers. 9.3, about halfway down, the quotes say a regular special committee. It should be a regular or special committee of a quorum court shall not consist of more than 4. It's supposed to be more than a quorum of the whole body. And then on page 10, item 10.1, it was not an Attorney General opinion. It was just a Supreme Court thing, and I've just now given Mr. Zago a copy. Thank you.
Is that all?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other corrections? I have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second. Motion.
So moved.
I have a motion, and you say, who motioned? You.
I motioned.
Okay. I have them, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank y'all. So we'll make sure that that's taken care of.
Here's a hard copy.
Okay, thank you. Next thing we have is a selection of representation to the service of the Arkansas Association of the Quorum Court. We will have a resolution before us and be able to declare a vacancy. We must pass that resolution to send to the governor. Steve.
Judge, I think you got
Combined
6 and 7.
Yeah, you got them mixed up.
Oh, okay.
6 is the court needs to elect somebody to send to the representation to the Association of Quorum Courts.
County Association of Counties.
So how do we do this? Do we make motions or how?
Nomination.
I have a, yes, Rick.
Yes. I would like to nominate Eva Madison. She's done a fine job this last term, and I would like to see if she would do it again, please.
I'd like to second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other nominations?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
On your mic.
I understand that this was the topic of some discussion at our January meeting, and I was out of town for work. I don't know. I want everybody to know I've thought about it. I'm happy to do it again, but I do it with some reservation, and I wanted everybody to know that, because if somebody is in it a little bit more, maybe wholeheartedly than I am, then I think maybe it might be someone else's turn. I've served as our court's representative for 2 terms, so 4 years, and in this last term, I was actually elected to the Arkansas Association of Quorum Courts board and served as a board member. The obligations are not considerable. We attend a annual meeting of our association each spring in Little Rock on a weekend, which is always the way I want to spend my spring weekends. And then we also attend the annual Association of Counties meeting, which is generally in August. I'm not always able to attend that meeting because that meeting is held during the week, and sometimes it's in places like Hot Springs, and anybody that works could have a hard time doing that because it's over the course of 3 days. The board has also had some phone conferences on things. I think over my time doing that for 4 years, I'm not sure what the Association of Counties does for JPs. I think is sort of where I've settled in. I think that the other associations, because those people, the county clerk, the county judge, those associations, because those people devote their full time to their positions, they tend to have the ear of the association a little bit more. And so I've struggled to try to figure out what it is that the JP Association does and how it benefits the quorum courts. So I come at it with that reservation that if I'm the only one, I'll be happy to go again. I certainly know the ropes. I know the people. Hopefully maybe I would get to serve on the board again and maybe have more influence in how the association handles our matters. But I want you all to know that I'm not exactly sure how we're benefiting from our involvement in that association. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Yes, Lisa.
JP Madison, just for that reason, I think you should do it again. Because perhaps your voice will be the voice that will make a change. And that way we can see this is why we need it. So.
Well said.
Do you want to make a motion to that effect?
I think we already had a motion.
So,
It's just a comment.
Let's see if there's any other.
Yeah, I
is
second
there
it.
any other nominations? Well, it looks like you've been elected with acclamation. Okay, as stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry I got them mixed up. The next thing we have is a resolution recognizing a vacancy in the quorum court. Butch.
Yes. Steve.
7.1, a resolution recognizing a vacancy in Quorum Court District 2 for 2015. Whereas Quorum Court District 2 is currently held by Jimmy Martis, who did not run for re-election, and whereas Robert Wilkinson won the Republican primary held on May 20, 2014, and did not have an opponent from the Democratic Party, and whereas Robert Wilkinson withdrew his name and did not appear on the ballot for the general election held on November 4, 2014, and whereas on January 15, 2015, Jimmy Martis submitted his official notice of resignation, causing a vacancy to exist for Quorum Court District 2. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that a vacancy is hereby declared to exist in Quorum Court District 2, and pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated Section 14-14-1310, the county judge shall notify the governor of such.
Move to pass 7.1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Do we have any public comment? Well, with no further comment, Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? John Furman?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Passes.
There's no password. You just be a guest.
Okay, now what we will do, just to give you a little
It's-
insight, we
it's
will
not
send a
very secure.
copy of this resolution to the governor. And then the governor will make the nomination and the appointment. So I just wanted you to know what will be coming. I don't have any idea how long it takes. Usually it's pretty quickly. So if anyone knows this more than I do, I'd be more than glad to hear suggestions. Otherwise, I'll just keep you informed when we know something. Thank you very much. Next thing we have is financial report. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. We met for the first time this year on the 10th of February and selected myself as the chair, Bill Essery as our vice chair. We reviewed our responsibilities for the court on the Budget Committee and Finance. We established our regular meeting time to be the same as we had in the past. We had a financial report by Bobby Hill. He updated us and helped the new JPs get their feet on the ground with the finance side of the business. The prosecutor, Matt Durrett, came in and gave us a quick review of his annual review on the hot check fee. We got a report from the grant administrator, Wayne Blankenship, and he will have some ordinances and resolutions for us. And we also had a brief discussion on Act 633 of the money owed to the state of Arkansas. And with that, Grant, Wayne, you want to come on down? Okay, we're going to read, but
Resolution authorizing the submittal of a community fire prevention grant.
Oh, sorry.
8.1.
Right. We can read that. Yep.
Steve, yes.
Thank you. A resolution authorizing the submittal of a community grant fire prevention grant applications. Whereas it is the desire of the county judge, county sheriff, and county fire marshal to apply to the Arkansas Fire Prevention Commission Community Fire Prevention Grant Program, and whereas said grants can be used for community education for prevention of fires, and whereas one grant application is for up to 500 smoke detectors, and the second application is for $1,520 for a portable display booth. Both grants require no match from the county. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, Article 1, it hereby authorizes and approves the submission of the grant applications as stated above.
Do I have a motion?
Move to pass?
I have a motion and...
question.
Oh, yes, Tom.
If I understood that right, it requires matching funds?
No, I
No.
said no matching.
No
funds.
match.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah,
you
but
said.
no matching funds.
Matching, sorry, thank you.
Do I have any other discussion? Sue?
I left it on, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Did all of these 8.1 to 3 through 10 all come through Finance Committee?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have struggled with this issue, but I will abstain on voting out of no disrespect to the chairman, please understand that, on all items coming out of the Finance Committee, because I'm in the process of getting an Attorney General's opinion on the issue that we discussed last month. And until that's resolved, I would like to just be recorded as voting. I struggle with this because I wasn't elected to not vote. I will vote no. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Do I have any public comment? With no comment, Carla, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. John Furman. Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
This resolution is adopted. 8.2.
A resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality Solid Waste Management Division. Whereas it is the desire of the county judge and the county's Environmental Affairs Office to submit a grant application to the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality Solid Waste Management Division, and whereas said grant will be used to purchase a secondhand semi-trailer to be used to store electronic waste before transport, and whereas the amount of said grant is approximately $10,000 with no match required by the county. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, Article 1, it hereby authorizes and approves the submission of the grant application as stated above.
Since this is a no match required, it's good money. I move to pass 8.2.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Carly, call the roll, please.
Okay. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. John Furman. Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Resolution is adopted. 8.3.
A resolution A resolution authorizing the Washington County Judge to submit a grant request to the Arkansas Rural Development Commission on behalf of the Wheeler Fire Department. Whereas the Washington County Quorum Court has determined the Wheeler community meets eligibility requirements necessary to apply for a grant under the Arkansas Rural Community Grant Programs, and whereas the Wheeler community has presented plans to purchase SCBAs, that's self-contained breathing apparatus, and other related equipment for the fire department, and whereas the Quorum Court of Washington County recognizes the need for the project, concurs in its importance, and supports the Wheeler community in its efforts to proceed with the same, and whereas the Wheeler community in parentheses, fire department, close parentheses, has furnished proof that they have raised $15,000 through community cash or in-kind donations to be applied to the project as a local match. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that the County Judge of Washington County is hereby authorized to submit an application of formal request to the Arkansas Rural Development Commission for purposes of securing state grant funds in the amount of $15,000 to aid and assist the Wheeler community in executing the proposed project described herein. Article 2, that the county judge is further authorized to administer the grant funds for the same project.
This is a fantastic deal on the part of the Wheeler community for them to come together, pull together $15,000 to do a state match, and I wholeheartedly move to pass 8.3.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? John Furman? Ann Harbison? Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted. The next thing you know is 8.5.
Please,
I'm
Steve.
sorry, did we, no, 8.4.
8.4.
Let's go back.
Please.
An ordinance.
Hang on just a minute.
Can we just read this one by title only, or do we need to read the whole
Make a motion
thing?
to read by title only.
I'd like,
Suspend the rule.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Title only.
Your county attorney thanks you. An ordinance anticipating revenues totaling $1,131,441 in various grant funds and appropriating $1,182,679 from various funds to various budget line items for 2015.
Great job for our grants administrator. This is a lot of money that he's brought into us, and I move to pass 8.4.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll?
Okay. Rick Cochran? Robert Dennis? Lisa Ecke? John Furman? Ann Harbison? Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
This ordinance is adopted. Now 8.5.
Please, Steve.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenues of $287,651 in the high-intensity drug trafficking area grant fund and appropriating $287,651 from the high-intensity drug trafficking grant fund area grant fund to the HIDA 2015 G15GC0004A budget for 2015. Article 1, additional revenues in the amount of $287,651 are hereby anticipated in the other federal grants revenue line item of the HIDA grant fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $287,651 from the HIDA grant fund to the special projects line item in the HIDA grant G15GC0004A budget for 2015.
I will move to pass 8.5.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? John Furman? Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joel Maxwell?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted.
8.6, please, Steve.
An ordinance recognizing $3,500 in the DEM grant fund and appropriating the amount of $3,500 from the DEM grant fund to the MRC 2015 grant budget. Article 1, additional revenues in the amount of $3,500 are hereby recognized in the other federal grants revenue line item of the DEM grant fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $3,500 from the DEM grant fund to the medicine and drugs line item in the MRC 2015 grant budget for 2015.
And once again, no cost to the County, I move to pass 8.6. Yes, John?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, John?
Do you mind telling us kind of what this is for the general public? Just what the DEM is, the Department of Emergency Management, is that correct?
Emergency Management and the MRC is Medical Reserve Corps. That's our volunteer nurses and doctors that will come together in an emergency to try to take care of the citizens that are hurt at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to ask, since these meetings are recorded, if people who speak could come to the microphone so that we're recorded, because I don't know that anything you said was audible. I know Carly probably got it, but if we could try to do that, because I've had some comments that people can't hear those things when there's just a random person in the audience talking. So that would be great.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll?
Okay. Rick Cochran. Yes. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. John Furman.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
This ordinance is adopted. 8.7.
Please, Steve.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $50,000 in the DEM grant fund and appropriating $50,000 to the CEMS CAD budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby recognized additional revenue of $50,000 in the DEM state grant revenue line item of the DEM grant fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $50,000 from the DEM grant fund to the small equipment line item of the CEMS CAD budget for 2015.
Okay, Wayne, come forward, please.
Come on, Wayne.
50,000 is,
I can do her.
okay.
I can assure you that much. Your
Punch your microphone.
I'll get it in a week or two. Your CAD is a computer-assisted dispatch system. The $50,000 came from Uvalde Lindsay. He got the Department of Rural Services to award that money to CEMS to help pay for this system, and we will write a check to them to help pay off the CAT system.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Move to pass 8.7. And
What is the CEMS?
Wayne, what's the...
Central Emergency.
Central Emergency Medical System.
Okay, Central.
Oh, that's it.
Central Emergency Medical System Services.
Thank you.
And again, I
Any
move
other?
to pass 8.7.
Do I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Okay,
This
passes.
ordinance is adopted.
8.8, please, Steve.
Did I skip one?
8.8, yeah. Yeah.
An ordinance anticipating revenues of $8,433 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating $8,433 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the AR-ICAC budget for 2015. Article 1, additional revenues in the amount of $8,433 are hereby anticipated in the other federal grants revenue line item of the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $8,433 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the following line items in the AR-ICAC budget for 2015. Computer equipment, $743, training and education, $4,628, meals and lodging, $1,406, common carrier, $1,656, for a total appropriation of $8,433.
This is a good start on our Arkansas Internet Crimes Against Children Fund. I move to pass 8.8.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carla, would you call the roll?
Okay. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, John Furman, Ann Harbison, Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman.
This ordinance is adopted. 8.9.
Please, Steve.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $3,711 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating $3,711 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the Circuit Court Juvenile Division grant budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby anticipated additional revenue of $3,711 in the state grants revenue line item of the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2015. Article 2, there is hereby appropriated the amount of $3,711 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the following line items in the Circuit Court Juvenile Division grant budget for 2015. Computer IT equipment, $3,339. Computer software support and maintenance agreement, $372 for a total appropriation of $3,711.
Once again, there is no cost to the county. I move to pass 8.9.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly?
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, John Furman, Ann Harbison, Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman.
Ordinance adopted.
8.10.
8.10, an ordinance appropriating the amount of $24,000 from the Assessor's Amendment 79 Fund to the Assessor's budget for 2015. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated the total amount of $24,000 from the Assessor's Amendment 79 Fund to the following line items in the Assessor's budget for 2015. General supplies, $5,000. Computer and IT equipment, $2,000. Postage, $6,000. Advertising and publications, $2,000. Meals and lodging, $1,500. Training and education, $1,500. Software support maintenance agreement, $6,000 for a total appropriation of $24,000.
This is a ordinance that will allow us to move money into various line items that we need to do. I move to pass 8.10.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Rick Cochran, Robert Dennis, Lisa Ecke, John Furman, Ann Harbison, Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman.
This ordinance, y'all did a good day's work.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Wayne for a good 2 months' worth of solid grant work there. That's fantastic. If you keep up this pace, it'd be fantastic. And that concludes the
Thank you
finance.
very much. Do what?
Steve, I have a question, actually. I know we had to go through all those, and I know that we've been talked to about the cost of ordinances. Is there any way to combine those so that we don't have to do all the different ordinances? Because I know Cheryl Bollinger talked to us about how expensive it is. It seemed like it would have been a whole lot easier if maybe we could have put it all into one. Is that possible legally?
Okay.
Here comes Wayne.
Well,
Come back one more time if they'll let me speak.
Judge, do you want me? Justice Madison addressed that question to me, and I can speak on my opinion of it. And I know other people held their hands up.
Go ahead, Steve. Okay.
I'm through.
Wayne, don't leave. With respect to resolutions and ordinances, obviously you can't combine those. The question of whether you could combine these all into one ordinance for the recognition, I don't know the answer to that question but my inclination is that you can't, because they deal with various different departments' budgets. I don't know. I don't want to tell you for sure. I don't know that.
Well, because I know when we do like the quarterly sweep, we put a whole lot of different things into one, and Cheryl has always done that to be efficient, to save the county the cost of each additional ordinance. And so we don't have to answer it tonight. I just know we've always done it that way, but tonight I sort of felt the length of it, and therefore I felt the expense of it. So if we could maybe just put that one on a to-be-answered list, I would appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next thing we have is our county judge report, and we have Jeff Hatley here for Ozark Regional. Jeff, would you come forward, identify yourself, and give us a brief report?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Judge, ladies and gentlemen of the court. My name is Jeff Hatley. I'm the Public Information Officer for Ozark Regional Transit. And as always, I will be very brief and then open it up to questions and comments and concerns. I haven't visited with y'all since October of last year. We typically try to report every couple of months, but we took the month of December off to kind of get everything lined back up again with all the different city councils that we do report to. In 2014, we had a record year. We had ridership of 320,976, which is the best year we've ever had. A lot of that is thanks to you folks and some of the other municipalities increasing our funding and allowing us to create new routes and to, with our demand response model, the smaller minivans, we have been able to more efficiently use our scheduling software by sending our people who schedule those rides back for training, get more bang for the buck out of that. And also we had a consultant there for a while from Dallas helping us squeeze every bit out of that too without adding a single vehicle to that particular public transit model. So therefore we've had record year. The Route 620, which is the route that goes from Lincoln, Prairie Grove, Farmington, through Lot 56 in Fayetteville, down through Greenland and West Fork. That new route that we instituted back, I believe it was June 2nd of last year, we have had 1,575 riders on that route in the second half of 2014. We consider that a huge success for a brand new route. People don't normally, when there's a new route like that, they don't typically just jump on the bus and see where it goes. They're fearful of being able to get back. So a lot of people will watch it, make sure it's coming through steadily at the same time every day before they ever try it. So 1,575 is actually a very solid number for that route, and we have great expectations for that. For January 2015, that particular route has had 208 passengers, so that bodes well for the rest of the year as those numbers increase. In Washington County, the demand response model, which is the smaller minivans, we had 6 rides in the month of January 2014 and only 3 in 2015. I don't know the reason for that. In all of 2013, we had a total of 65 demand response rides in that whole year, and that amount raised to 230 in 2014. So that's quite a bit of a growth spurt. And like I said, that's largely due to being able to squeeze more out of our scheduling software and get more bang out of our buck. With that, I will leave it to...
Why don't you ask them about your every 2 months, every 3 months, Jeff, and say what the court's wish is on
Okay.
that.
As I stated before, we typically come and report about every 2 months, and I wanted to see if that was working well for the court or if we wanted to ratchet that down to every 3 months or even 6 months. We're happy to come as often or less often as the court wishes.
Yes.
I think once every 6 months would be sufficient from my perspective. I think it takes away the time that you all have to probably to do other things. And we're trying to be a little bit more efficient in the demands we place on folks to come and sit at our meetings and give reports. So obviously you're welcome anytime there's something significant, but my preference would be that just biannually would be fine.
Okay. And with that, I would send our report electronically every month.
That would do. Rick.
I appreciate the every month. That's what I was going to ask if you could do that. And I would like to your next meeting be timed somewhere just shy of when we begin our budget for the following year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other suggestions, comments? Ann?
Since Route 620 is in my district, I am glad to see that people are starting to use that bus route.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else? then we will have you every 6 months. If you would go ahead and send the reports to Karen, and that way we'll have them on hand if we need them. And we always appreciate you coming, Jeff. Thank
I certainly
you very
will.
much.
Thank you very much.
Sean, want to give us a road report, please? I know you've got a ball game, so.
I don't have a whole lot to discuss. Of course, this week we had the winter weather. We kind of, I guess, tried to tie up some loose ends today, just some spots that we were still having some issues with, ice on the road. But for the most part, we went out Monday, spent 12 to 14 hours, most of the guys did, plowing, grading the snow off. Really had good luck, I guess. The warm weather on Saturday really helped us. But hopefully next month I'll have a cost for that for you all. New construction around the county, or the roads, the gravel roads we're trying to turn into paved roads. We're still working over on Round Mountain on 1090 and 199. About to get that ready to where when the warm weather gets here, we can chip seal that. And for those of y'all that haven't been on the court very long, when we chip seal, we can't do it until after April 15th, and then not after September 15th is kind of how we do it. Has to be warm and stay warm for a while. We're also working on Wolf Track, which is over on the west side of the county near Summers. The bridge, Stonewall Bridge, we are still working on the east side wing wall and end walls. Kind of hoping I've actually pushed back the completion date a month. I'm hoping by May we can finish this. One of the obstacles that has really slowed us down is the availability of concrete. We will call sometimes and be ready for concrete, but it's been 10 days before they can get a truck to us. Sometimes it's 5 days, sometimes it's 7 days. At January 1, we switched companies, and it's gotten a little better, but it's still sometimes 5 days out. Just the demand is there, which is good for Washington County, but bad when you're needing the concrete. But hopefully May we will open that bridge, if not before. So one thing I want to mention is with this winter weather and this freezing and thawing, some of y'all may get some calls for muddy roads or bad roads. So you're welcome to pass those on to the road department. But it's just that time of year, the freezing and thawing's just part of it. We're trying, but can't haul any gravel when the snowplows are on the front of them. So, but anyway, if y'all get any calls, just please pass them on to us, and we'll try our best to get it taken care of. If anybody's got any questions?
John.
The Woolsey Bridge with the state, where are we? Has that changed at all? The status on that?
It hasn't. We're still waiting. Right now they're doing the design and doing the environmental study, and hopefully we'll have a meeting for long, and they will show us, where they're alignment, everything about the bridge, and go over it with us, and kind of go from there. I hope it'll go out to bid by the end of the year, but it may be next year before it goes out to bid.
Thanks.
Can you bring us up to date? Are you going to try to start on the Orr Bridge this year?
I hope so. That's the plan. Is I'm going to try and start getting all the permits, the drawings, all that done while we're working on Stonewall Bridge, and then just carry on into that one. Of course, part of that is budget, depending on where we're at after the Stonewall Bridge is complete. But yes, that's the plan.
That's the next bridge. Oh.
Yes.
Robert, did that answer your question? Okay. Harvey.
Sean, I picked up a unrequested positive comment about roads and how you guys handle the snow and ice out on the west side of Tawny Town. So you're doing something good out there, and I've not been picking up any negative comments at all. So everything I'm hearing is really good.
We have gotten a few negatives, but that's to be expected. Yeah. But we've gotten a lot of positive. I got an email from a lady here in Fayetteville. She just went on and on. about how good a job we did.
Well-
When she got to a county north of us, she said it all changed. But which
Well, it's always great to hear those unsolicited comments. That's positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
When Sean showed up tonight, he brought this. I was not aware of it until he got here, which is this is Association of the Arkansas Counties Workers' Compensation Trust recognition. This is for the safety program efforts for 2014. We have not received one of these in
It's
some
2005.
time. Yeah, so this is very, very complimentary, and I just wanted to share it with all of y'all. Thank you very much. Sean, anything else?
No.
Any questions anymore? Thank you. Yes, Butch.
I just wanted to say, and I could just say it, I appreciated the work they did clearing the roads, the ice, and putting the gravel on. But sometimes people don't think about how nice, they see how nice and convenient that is. But what they're not thinking about is if that work doesn't get done and then somebody needs an ambulance or any of the emergency service, it's just a double whammy. And I just appreciate what y'all do.
Thank you, Butch.
Thank you, Sean. Go home to that ball game with your boys. The next thing we have, I don't have anything other than the reports. The next thing we have is our committee reports. Eva?
Thank you, Judge. The County Services Committee held its first meeting of the term on February 2nd. We began our meeting by electing a chair and vice chair. I was elected chair, and J.P. John Furman was elected our vice chair. Our agenda was mostly full of reports, year-end reports from various county entities that fall under county services. So we heard from the County Planning Department. We heard from Juliet Ritchie, our director, she actually gave us more of an overview of the county planning process for the new members of the court. We heard from Angela Ledgerwood, the director of our county animal shelter, and she reported on some of the good work that they're doing down there. We heard from Sophia Stevenson, our director of environmental affairs. She also gave a year-end report about all the work that they had done in 2014. And then we heard from John Adams, our director of information technology, who gave us an update on past issues that they've been dealing with in systems they've changed. And then we also talked about the coming year. I think, thankfully, some of the expenditures are leveling out and slowing down, and so we don't anticipate big things on the horizon. We also decided to hear those reports less regularly, so we're trying to go on a staggered quarterly basis so that we're not tying up time while people sit in meetings and we get sort of over-reported. So we will continue to hear things as needed, but those folks will be coming in on a staggered quarterly basis. Judge, I didn't know if you wanted me to go on with the ordinance or if you want to do that when we get to it.
Let's do it when we get to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Next thing with him is Public Works. Harvey?
We had a brief presentation by Ron and Sean about the roads and about the county buildings and so forth. Ron gave us an update on the fact that they pretty well finished up the lighting issue of most of the county buildings, and there's been some very nice savings coming in from that. He also said that didn't anticipate any big projects this year, and we hope he's absolutely right about that because of the limited budget opportunities. Sean gave us an update on the road situation and continuing job they're doing with the bridges and repair and so forth. But everything seems to be going great, and that concludes our report.
Thank you, Harvey. Butch?
Yes, ma'am. Personnel met February 9th. We picked our chair and our vice chair. We reviewed the responsibilities of the personnel committee. We got some new members. And we established our regular meeting time, which is the same as it was last year. And we had our routine report from Blair Johansson and the salary consultant. And we took care of a couple of routine JSAP requests from the sheriff and the county judge. And then we discussed an ordinance setting mileage reimbursement procedures and determined we might possibly need to table that for a time. It seems we have some quorum court members who would entertain the idea of being paid mileage to drive from their office to perform wedding ceremonies. So we'll be bringing that back up at the next meeting, I'm sure, with possibly some lively discussions. Now, that was about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Tom?
We did meet also on February the 9th, Jail and Law Enforcement Committee. We introduced the members of the committee, went over the things the committee is supposed to do, how we're supposed to function with everybody. We had election of officers. I was elected chair. JP Joe Patterson was elected co-chair. We had our normal committee reports. Everything was still pretty much normal, nothing drastic to report, thank God. Numbers are staying pretty stable, etc. Jeannie Mack gave us pretty much the same report from the Juvenile Detention Center. We had a brief report. I don't remember whether it was the sheriff or one of the guys made a comment on our new medical program over there, and it seems to be functioning well. So everything looks good starting the year with the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Tom. Rick, do you have anything else? Thank you. The next thing we have is number 11, which is a special election. Ann, you want to take that?
Okay. Stephen, I want to read 11.1, please.
An ordinance calling a special election on the question of the levy of the annual dues of the West Fork Rural Fire Department and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. Whereas the West Fork Rural Fire Department has requested that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, the county, call a special election for the levy of dues in the amount not to exceed $50 annually on each residence and each business having an occupiable structure for which the department provides fire protection in the area served by the department, and whereas the request has been signed by the fire chief and all of the required officers of the board and has been duly filed with the county clerk, and whereas pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated Section 14-20-108, the Quorum Court is required to call the election, which shall be at the expense of the department, and whereas if the levy of the dues are approved, I think that should be is approved. Anyway, the dues shall be listed annually on the property tax statements and collected by the Washington County Collector in the same time and manner as real property taxes and personal property taxes in accordance with Arkansas Code Annotated Section 14-20-108. And whereas the county has a contractual relationship with the department to provide fire protection and the payment of dues will help lessen the financial burden on the county. And whereas the purpose of this ordinance is to call a special election on the question of the levy of the West Fork Rural Fire Department dues on each residence or business having occupiable structure in the area for which department provides fire protection. Now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that there be, and there is hereby called, a special election to be held on June 9, 2015, at which election there shall be submitted to the electors of the county living in the unincorporated area in which department provides fire protection the question of the levy of annual fire department dues on each residence or business having occupiable structure within such area. Article 2, that the question of the West Fork Rural Fire Department dues shall be placed on the ballot for the election in substantially the following form. Whether or not the dues in an amount not to exceed $50 per year of the West Fork Rural Fire Department shall be levied against each residence and each occupiable business structure in the area so served to be listed on real property tax statements and collected by the Washington County Tax Collector in the same manner as ad valorem taxes are collected beginning with the 2014 property taxes due and payable in 2015. 4, the levy not to exceed $50 as annual dues for the West Fork Rural Fire Department on each residence and each business having an occupiable structure in the West Fork Rural Fire Department Service District against the levy not to exceed $50 as annual dues for the West Fork Rural Fire Department on each residence and each business having an occupiable structure in the West Fork Rural Fire Department Service District. Article 3, that the election shall be held and conducted and the vote canvassed and the results declared under the law and in the manner now provided for county elections, and only qualified voters in the affected unincorporated area of the county shall have the right to vote at the election. Article 4, a copy of this ordinance shall be given to the Washington County Board of Election Commissioners so that the necessary election officials and supplies may be provided. Article 5, the county clerk and the election commission for and on behalf of the county they are hereby authorized and directed to do any and all things necessary to call and hold the special election as herein provided. Article 6, the cost of the election shall be borne by the department. Article 7, department shall annually submit a sufficient list to the collector reflecting dues owed so that he may properly bill such. Article 8, the Department of Emergency Services, the county clerk, and the county assessor shall assist in the preparation of a map and other information needed to effectuate said election. Article 9, the collector shall remit said dues collected on a monthly or quarterly basis to the West Fork Rural Fire Department. Furthermore, the collector is authorized to promulgate additional rules and regulations as he deems necessary to assist him in the collection of said dues, including a reasonable fee to be charged by the West Fork Rural Fire Department, all subject to the approval of the Quorum Court.
Okay, we have passed this ordinance for several of the rural fire departments. I move that we pass 11.1.
We have a motion and a second.
Judge?
Yes.
May I be heard on that?
Yes, please.
It's on second reading.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
we can't put it, they can't have the election, they have to have it within 90 days of third reading, and they want to have it in June. So they've asked that it
Right.
not be passed until your March meeting.
We moved on to
March.
next month.
I had forgotten that. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. Number 12?
Judge?
I have
I'm
a question
sorry.
on that.
Go right ahead.
On a special election, how much does that cost to have a special election? Why do you have to have a special election instead of just during a regular election time?
Robert, there are two questions in there. The first one about how much does it cost? It depends on what we're electing for, and I don't feel qualified. Maybe somebody else in the room can answer that question, but they will pay for it. The West Fork Rural Fire Department will pay for it. It won't come out of the county's coffers. They will reimburse us, though, and I think that's important for you to know that we pay for it up front and they pay us back. Second part of that is that because it's statutorily required to be at a special election under 1414-208.
And what they do, the election commissioners are very, very, very prompt. They're very, very detailed. They will work up all the billing, and then they will send it to the West Fork, and then they will reimburse the county for that money. Eva?
I was just going to add for J.P. Dennis's benefit, I think it's called a special election. That doesn't necessarily mean it's off cycle. You can have a special election at another designated election time, but it would be up to them to pick when it is, and then they pay for it. So I know we've had some special elections that then happen at the primary or happen with something else. So they don't all have to be out of sync, which I think was sort of what I understood maybe the motivation of your question is, because some of us don't like all the special elections we
Right.
have.
It was, and then also the cost. I mean, I just hate to spend $10,000 on an election to gain $8,000. So to me, it's just a matter of dollars and cents. Is it a smart investment? Is what I'm saying.
It's a very smart investment because most of the people, they forget to send in their dues, and if it's on their tax bill, then it's paid. And I mean, these rural fire departments depend on those dues to function. So
that part I understand. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Trust me, I am. I'll go into that another meeting. But at the same time, I spend money. I guess you have to do it that way. Thanks.
Yes, Joe. Was it Joe or I'm sorry? Joe.
I put that out for feedback for several constituents and got a lot of feedback. And there were some initial concerns, but then there was one that has kind of bubbled up in addition to that. So I reached out to the Attorney General's office to just try to understand what the precedent was for that. And it looks like right now that there is a limitation on collecting taxes and dues, however you want to phrase that, for a nonprofit. And I haven't been able to absolutely ascertain. It looks like, according to the internet, that West Fork is a nonprofit currently. So right now there's pending legislation at the state to try to change that policy. I don't know what that puts the county at risk for if we do that. So that may be something to be understood better at a later date.
I did take those documentations
Okay.
that you and I visited about, and I've given them to Steve.
Okay.
And he is researching them, and he'll let you know more
Perfect.
after we get through that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Joe?
Nob Hill was the first one that did it in this county, and they more than paid for their election the first year, and it increased their money about 60% on the average. It was well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? No, thank you. Well, this will just move forward until next month, and then we'll look at it again next month. Okay, Eva, number 12.
Thank you, Judge. This was actually J.P. Lundstrom's ordinance, so I would defer to him if he would like to take the lead here. Okay. I'm told that if it comes out of your committee, it becomes your ordinance, so. Mr. Zaga, if you would, 12.1.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2014-06 pertaining to community sewer systems. Whereas, on February 21st, 2014, the Quorum Court enacted ordinance number 2014-06, which amended Washington County Code Section 11-99.1 regarding community sewer systems. And whereas there is desire to further amend such, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. Article 1, all community sewer systems are required to have a backup generator in the event of power outage, said generator to be approved by the Washington County Public Utilities Coordinator.
And for the benefit of those who aren't up to speed on this issue, our Public Utilities Coordinator brought this to us, and this was, just as it says, we're kind of going back and correcting the community sewer systems ordinance that we had to make sure that there's a backup generator, because if your sewer system stops because the power's out, you can only think about what would happen. So this is to make sure that new community sewer systems that are installed in the county will have a backup power supply, so that hopefully there won't be a sewer mess. So I move to pass 12.1.
Second.
Well, now we need to move this on up. Yeah, you want to suspend the rules and place it on the...
Suspend the rules and read second time by title only.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor of suspending rules, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2014-06 pertaining to community sewer systems.
Okay, I'll move now that we advance it to the third reading and read by title only.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2014-06 pertaining to community sewer systems.
Now I move to pass 12.1. That's right.
Okay, do I have any discussion? Do I have any public comment?
I do have discussion. I'm so sorry to bring it up.
No, you're fine.
But I don't understand the community sewers system, and who owns it? Does the county own it?
No.
And I can try to answer
Would you
that.
And
go
I
ahead?
guess here's my real question. I have a pump on my septic tank. No. See where I'm going?
Yeah, this is where out where there's not sewer systems available, a development can occur, and they make their own sewer system. So we recently did a development that was out Highway 45 that was dealing with this issue, and they don't have access to a sewer system. And so their alternative is a septic, or now they have these community sewer systems, which is like a miniature of a city. And so they have their own sewer system, and that is funded by the property owner. So when the developer comes in and proposes the community sewer system, planning will go through, they did for this development we looked at Highway 45, they're going to look at how the sewer system's set up. And one of the issues that Ms. Renee caught in this is that the lack of a backup generator. But we talked to some extent about a bond, because it becomes, once the developer's out of the picture, then the homeowners become responsible for running their own sewer system. And when we first started doing this, we didn't really think all the way through how that was going to work out in terms of, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what happens if there's a problem with the system, who's in charge, the developer's gone, where's the money?
The county pays for it versus
No, the homeowners would pay for it. But we're getting a little bit more proactive in realizing the issues that come down the road, because the system that we approved out Highway 45, they're going to actually have a monthly assessment. Just like we all get a sewer bill if you're in a city, those homeowners are going to get a sewer bill from their POA to help fund their sewer system.
And that's what we need. I mean, because there are things that are happening now with some of our new JPs. You need to ask these questions, and I appreciate you bringing it up very much. Thank you, Robert.
Sue.
Sue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the committee level, when we discussed this, I became aware that there are some existing community sewer systems that don't have backup generators, and this ordinance would not apply to them. And I learned about the bond, but I think the person in charge of that department said the bond is really not very much money. If there were to be some problem, let's say during a power failure, the sewer system without a backup generator failed, and a lot of raw sewage flowed into the White River and we had fish killed or whatever, who would bear the expense of trying to fix that for our area? Would DEQ come in, or who? I mean, I'm concerned about the little loophole being left out of this. Whose expense would that be?
I'm sure there'd be a lawsuit, and I'm sure it would be left up to the property owners to have to cover it.
Well, who would fix it while the problem is there? Courts don't tend to do things in a hurry.
Judge, if I can, we actually, when I was on the court, we had these, this was the first, decentralized sewer systems were new to us, and that exact question came up. And the consensus of that court was that the expense would probably fall to the county for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is it's the only government in where these decentralized sewer systems exist that would have any kind of ability to respond immediately. I don't know if, and I'm not qualified to answer a question whether DEQ has teams, would amount to hazmat teams to deal with this. My enduring suspicion is they do not. We don't necessarily have it either, not on that particular level, but I was convinced as a JP that if there was a catastrophic failure of one of these systems, it was going to come back to us, and that the bonds in general were woefully inadequate to deal with the cost of a catastrophic failure. Sorry to give you that good news. Now, that was not a legal answer so much as the way it works kind of answer.
Well, I think the historic perspective is valuable in this case, but there was no resolution of it. Okay.
The way it came upon us, the General Assembly approved these as a matter of how to get rural property development done in areas that you couldn't necessarily do individual septic tanks for each lot. And it was left to us sort of in planning to implement that program. Not to pass regulations about how they would be run or anything like that, but simply to say, planning, is this adequate for a pond? Is this adequate for the fill field? Is this adequate for the number of residents we anticipate in each of these houses for single family, that kind of thing?
Okay. Madam Judge, this is worrying me a little bit because, it's once you've had a catastrophe, it's not very helpful to sit back and say, oh, what we should have done. I think it might be a good idea for whichever committee heard this issue to look at the numbers of ones that are being left out and uncovered and sort of have a little bit of a study on what our exposure could be. Not to say that we shouldn't support this. This is a step in the right direction here, but I think, if there's just one or two out there that don't have backup generators, that's not that horrendous. And maybe we'll just buy them a generator. But if there are lots of them, we might need to have another plan. Thank you, Madam Judge.
What I would suggest is, like you say, the committee that take this and pull Renee in with this, because Renee can give you some good insight on this, and then we'll work with whatever we need to do on it. Yeah.
Did we haven't moved it up to, this is the first reading.
No, it's like 3 times. So we are, I had a public comment. Do I have any public comment, please? With no comment, Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. John Furman. Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Ordinance adopted. Next thing we have is Tom Lundstrom, resolution confirming the policy statement of sheriff regarding.
Mr. Zega, if you would read 13.1, please.
A resolution confirming the policy statement of the sheriff regarding the temporary filling of the office of sheriff pursuant to Act 229 of 2009, Arkansas Code Annotated 14-14-1310. Whereas Act 229 of 2009 requires that the sheriff designate 3 persons or positions who would serve temporarily as sheriff in the event of an emergency no later than 60 days from the beginning of the elected term of office, and whereas Tim Helder, the duly elected sheriff of Washington County, Arkansas, has previously made said designation pursuant to Resolution Number 2009-09, is required to do so again as a newly elected term of office has commenced, and whereas the Quorum Court is required to adopt a resolution confirming such, now therefore be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. Article 1, the policy statement of the sheriff is hereby adopted and approved by the Quorum Court. Article 2, said policy statement is hereby incorporated herein as if set out word for word. Article 3, the statement in this resolution shall be effective immediately and filed with the county clerk and the Arkansas Department of Emergency Services.
This is something that's required by the state at the beginning of every new term for the sheriff to present this. The 3 names that he has given is number 1, Chief Deputy Jay Cantrell, number 2, Major Rick Hoyt, number 3, Major Randall Denzer. So I move that we pass 13.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? With no further comment, Carly, please call the roll.
Okay. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis. Lisa Ecke. John Furman. Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
This resolution is adopted. The next thing I have is any other business. Yes, go ahead, Sue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not a big deal, but in the minutes, under other business, I asked last time if there was any way our agenda items that are on the web could be in a PDF form that wasn't scanned. And I tried for about 45 minutes to transfer the minutes of the last meeting to a flash drive to print on another computer that prints much faster and much cheaper. And it wouldn't, I couldn't store it, I couldn't transfer it, I couldn't move it, I couldn't do anything with it. So I finally, at great labor and took forever, printed it out on a slow printer. So are we still copying or scanning a written copy and posting that?
Carly, can you answer that question?
What I do is I scan an original copy of the agenda and then I upload it. It's uploaded as a PDF file to the website.
Well, and I talked to our IT person who was in the audience at a meeting, and he said that he would get it done. And the judge said that she would check into getting it done. If you could just take the PDF when you write it and post that rather than printing it and scanning it, I think that's where the glitch is happening. It makes it very unuser-friendly, if that's a word.
Go ahead, Eva.
I think the difference is that it makes for a searchable file, a file that you can copy, and a file that's much smaller and easier to transfer, because I know a lot of us are reading agendas on mobile devices from our offices or things like that. And so the time to download a scanned PDF, it's a much bigger file. The difference is going to be, instead of scanning it, when you've got it in Word, there should be a way for you to print to PDF instead of printing to a printer. You're saying no, maybe? No. Oh, okay. I thought you were... And J.P. Cochran is truly our IT expert on the court, but I do this at work a lot because this is the way we have to e-file in court. You're in your actual Word document, and you go to printer, and you should have a print to PDF option, and then that way it just makes a smaller file, searchable file, so that if you're trying to review minutes, you don't have to actually manually scan them. You could search for your name.
Okay. Well, the thing about that is we can't, like for the attachments that some people give to us, we don't have them as a Word document, so we would have to scan it into.
Yeah. And some of the documents can be in PDF, and if you have Adobe X or Pro or something, you can insert scanned into it's a way that, and actually it saves printing because you never actually have to physically print the piece of paper.
I don't know how to turn mine on, so we'll have to get somebody else to worry about that.
I think John Adams thought you had the technology to do it.
Well, he came by and we went over it it was me, Karen, and John. We went over it, and from what he said that it should be accessible. You guys should be able to print it off and do whatever you need to from that. But that was just his opinion.
I'll come to you after the meeting. I've got my computer with it on it, and I'll show you. Okay,
great.
You're looking at someone that's in trouble here, so with that. Okay. Any other business?
Judge.
Yes.
Judge, right here. Here I am.
Harvey.
Turn your speaker on. Turn your mic on.
Oh, I thought it was on. Okay. Guys, I think after our last meeting, I made a number of comments about the Committee of the Whole. And since then, I've done some research. I believe the Washington County JPs were elected with a primary responsibility for each one of us to do our part in managing county finances. Limiting the number of participants on the committee does not allow this to happen. I think we all know the state law allows the county judge to allow or disallow the Committee of the Whole. Last year with the Committee of the Whole, we got a big job done. Now Judge Edwards says no to the Committee of the Whole, and she has that right. On January 15th, the first meeting of Quorum Court, our county attorney, Sega, said heavy lifting is done in the committees, and I agree with that. On February 10, Rick Cochran, the chairman of Finance and Budget, said that Budget and Finance and Budget is the heavy lifting committee, and I agree with that. We heard that Quorum Court went over the budget by $95,000 last year because there's a lot of heavy lifting done to remove $4 million from our budget. That's a lot of heavy lifting, guys. Since Judge Edwards has made this decision to limit the Committee of the Finance and Budget, I contacted the Association of Counties and found a ruling that the Arkansas State Attorney General that the Quorum Court has the authority to decide what committees we work with. So we as a body, according to this AG's opinion, are the ones to decide what committees we have. I've got a copy of that report here, and I want everybody to have a copy. Would you pass that around, Rick? When this copy gets around to everybody, I'll read selected items. This copy came to me with highlighted areas, and it has an indication that there has been a number of questions over the years that still remain based on this relationship between the Quorum Court and their responsibilities and the judge and their responsibilities. And I want you to glance at that right quick. It's the highlighted area, and there still seems to be confusion about these responsibilities. So turn to page 3 in that document. Oops. Hey, those are grayed out. I'm sorry, on the copies they're gray instead of yellow. Turn to the third page. Now, before we go to the third page, let me start out here earlier. On the first page at the bottom of the line, bottom of the page, as an initial matter, I must point out, as the two of my predecessors, that the statute is not entirely clear on this issue. And then goes on with all kinds of legal mumbo-jumbo. And then it goes on down to the next paragraph, the presiding officer shall appoint and so forth. But guys, it really gets down to the summation on page 3. Look at page 3 down at the point that says, in my opinion, the determination of which committees are to be formed is responsibility of the Quorum Court rather than the county judge. And I base this conclusion on several provisions of law. And then he starts talking the legal issues that I don't understand all of. Guys, I feel like this is a major issue for our court. and I feel very strongly about us all participating in this budgeting process. This document has highlighted the association person supplying it. It addresses the specific questions and indicates that there are still questions. Do any of you have any questions about this thing that we passed out? Okay. Well, I guess my question to the court is, do you as a JP want to sit out and allow someone else to do your part of the heavy lifting for the quorum court? I think that's a question every one of us got to answer. Our people voted for us to come down here and represent them to make decisions on budget and finance for this county. When we're sitting out on the sidelines in this voting process in the committee, then we can state our opinion, but we don't get to vote. That's like we're saying going to vote for the governor or the mayor or anything of the kind. You can share your opinion, but you can't vote. I don't think that's appropriate at all. First, I want to appeal to Judge Edwards to allow the committee of the whole for finance and budget, because I believe Rick will do a great job as chairman of the committee, and so will the other people on the committee. The problem is will be better resolved with everyone's help. As it stands, 8 of the 15, will be left out on the heavy lifting of the activity in the budget committees. Judge, would you allow this to happen?
Not now. I've still got a lot of consideration to do.
Okay. I think Eva had a question
Yes,
or
Eva.
comment.
I don't know if you may have more to say. I just wanted to.
Only a little bit, just a summary. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to be able to say that I've really struggled with this issue because I think most folks know that I worked really hard on the budget last year. Some people had approached me at the end of last year actually asking me if I'd be interested in serving as budget chair. And I think in working to possibly prepare for that role, I had really thought about the process. I'd really tried to think about ways to make it more efficient. I thought very hard about the committees I wanted to serve on. I sent Judge Edwards a letter in December asking her, giving her what were my committee preferences. I expressed that I felt it was very important, and I felt legally that the committee of the whole should stand. So, of course, I wanted to be on that committee again. And I asked to continue the work I had done as chair of Public Works because we were sort of in the middle of some issues with Public Works that didn't get finished. I got no response, and I was removed from 2 of those committees. And I think about how is that making me an effective legislator? 2 of the places that I viewed where I was doing the most effective work, I got removed with no explanation for why. I got removed from those places. That makes me, for my constituents, be a less effective legislator than I could be. And so I've tried to think about what's the solution for this. J.P. Cochran, maybe 2-3 years ago, I don't remember when, had actually commented he wanted to have our committee meetings televised like our quorum court meetings are. And I think ultimately that failed because we were worried about the cost. We're always very sensitive to the cost of things, and it costs more money to report them, and it costs more money to pay the city to broadcast them. But I think the issue is that we say a lot in those committee meetings that we don't say at this meeting when we are on TV. And the public is missing out on what we're talking about at those committee meetings. And I wonder if we need committees, frankly, because I think we do so much more in this meeting that should be on TV and should be the time when we voice our opinions. We act functionally as a committee of the whole in so many respects because, as J.P. Dennis has pointed out, we all come to the meetings, whether we're on the committee or not, and we all talk. I know Judge Edwards, at the beginning of our term in 2013, actually proposed that we do away with all the committees and we have a single committee of the whole. So I've struggled with what the perfect solution is, but I know that the current solution is not a good one because it has made me ineffective for my constituents. I'm unable to continue on the issues that I felt like were important for Public Works. We did not finish those. I will not have the ability to finish those. And despite the efforts that I made with our budget last year, I don't even have a vote on the committee this year. And I think this body needs to give very serious consideration to how we want to handle our committees and whether they're effective, whether they're serving any purpose. Because I feel like I raised questions that somebody didn't want asked, and the reaction was that I was taken off those committees as a result. So, J.P. Bowman, I thank you for bringing this issue up. I was not here when we discussed this issue in January, but it is something that we really need to discuss because we are the legislative body of this county. And if the way our state legislature has handed us our deck of cards, our hand, is not effective, we need to figure out how to be effective. Thank you, Judge.
John.
I served my first term, we had the same type of system that we have this year. So for 2 years, there were finance committee, and we sat through, we all commented on the appropriations, and it worked fine. I mean, I guess I don't really have an issue either way that it works. I would like to point out that there's some different feelings on the court because Rick Cochran, and I'm just talking historically, he sat out of the Finance Committee when it was the Committee of the Whole because he felt strongly like it was the judge's decision to appoint. So, I mean, he's our finance chair now. So if we change things around, does that mean that then Rick won't sit on the Finance Committee? I mean, these are the kind of things I think get complicated. And I think what's important is that, you know, I thought that last year's finance, I thought we did a really poor job on our budget last year. It was definitely the worst one that I ever sat through. I felt like it took too long, and I think it brought up some interesting information, but I don't think it was germane to getting a budget passed. And I think that the evidence of that shows that our finance chair came back to us with a budget that we basically approved in about 2 or 3 weeks. And it had nothing to do with all the other discussions that we had. And so what I think is important isn't the political wrangling that we're having between either having a full committee or not. What I think we need to do is do a better job and a more efficient job just as individuals. And you certainly are represented here on this court. And if you have an issue that you don't like, you can take it to the full quorum court. So you have remedies that are present whether we go with this system or not. So I guess I'm disappointed that we're doing that same thing that we did last year. We're spending time trying to figure out who has the power instead of just going ahead, sitting down and talking about the budget. I mean, we can't pass the budget at the quorum court level if you don't like it. So your thoughts are going to be there regardless. I mean, if you voice your opinion and you're not on the committee, you say, well, if you pass this, I'm not voting for it. And if 4 people say that, then it's pretty clear to the committee that it's not going to pass. So I think it works well either way. And I think that what we need to do is, spend less time trying to overmanage things and politicize things and just sit down and work a better finance system for next year. And I mean, I have plenty of ideas too, and I feel like I can participate in them and try to throw out some ideas about a way we could be more efficient in providing an efficient budget for next year and make it. I think we can do it in about 4 weeks. So those are just my opinions. Thank you.
Okay, John. Sue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, when I used to talk to school groups, they would always want to know what I did in the General Assembly, and I would always tell them, we spend the money and we make the laws. That's what the legislative branch does, and we're the legislative branch for the county. We spend the money and make the laws. And I think that is extremely important, the spending of money. And I don't care if we're here till midnight working on a budget. It doesn't matter to me that something takes too long. And, I have plenty of other things to do with my time, I can assure you. But that is our job. And I think that by the time something comes out of a committee, it has been thoroughly digested, pieces have been inserted, pieces have been taken out, and not to be able to vote on the final package of something that's as important as the spending of this county's money is not right. And that is why, believe it or not, I still have friends, even after the last election in the General Assembly, and a friend is getting an Attorney General's opinion from me because we passed that ordinance, I think February 21st of 2013, that set up, defined the committees of the county and said Finance and Budget will be a committee of the whole. The House bill that passed did not have an emergency clause, and it did not go into effect until August, well after our ordinance had passed. Now, our county attorney says, well, this is a new court with new committees. But that ordinance did not have a sunset clause. It did not have an expiration date. And it was a Supreme Court decision that I had looked at before that said the legislature is presumed to be speaking into the future, not into the past, unless they specifically say we're speaking into the past. And so I've asked the Attorney General to answer two questions relative to this new committee situation that we have that to me seems at odds with the ordinance that was passed. And we don't repass all our ordinances every 2 years. Why would we need to do one? I feel like spending money and making laws is why we're here. And really, the public, I think, has much more concern about how their money is spent than the laws we may fine-tune on occasion. So I couldn't agree more with J.P. Bowman.
Tom?
Thank you.
Excuse me. I personally like the committee of the whole on finance. I like being able to vote. I believe, personally, my biggest problem with this, I agreed a lot with what some of the things John said. In some ways, it doesn't make that much difference. But my biggest complaint with what our state legislature did is I believe the law they passed violated the doctrine of separation of powers. It's like Judge Edwards one night explained to us that she's judge and she runs the road department. I agree with that 100%. It's her duty. It's what she's elected to do. She got 100% of it. I've got no problem with that. We're elected as the legislative body of county government. In every other level of government, you go to cities, other counties, state, federal, all the rest of them, the legislative body does their own committee work, appoints their own chairs. You know, the president don't appoint the Speaker of the House and those kind of positions because of separation of powers. It's very important. To some extent, that has been denied to us. I personally believe that's going to be reversed probably this year or next. But in the meantime, it is what it is. I wanted to ask Harvey, that paragraph you read, is that actually written by the Attorney General? Is that
This came from the
page
County
3.
Association of Counties, and this was a report that came out in 2003. And the
So it is
Attorney
written
General
by
at that
Mike
time
Beebe.
was what became our Governor BB.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of confusion on this, but I believe it's definitely a problem with separation of powers, and I'd like to see that reinstated and let us pick, you know, if we want committees exactly like we have now, that's our position to decide that. I have no problem with the judge appointing who's going to serve on a committee, but I believe it's the legislative body's power to decide what committees they want to use. That's all I have, Judge. Thank you very much.
Butch?
I'm a little bit, I'm kind of like John. I'm willing to serve whichever way that the county judge or the quorum court determines. And we all need to do a good job. But I did want to make sure, because there are people listening that might not realize this from our discussion, but none of us on here serve on any kind of committee that can pass something without it going to the full quorum court and everybody at this horseshoe, all 15 of us, if we're here that night, can vote on it. So every district is being equally represented when the final vote comes down. I'm not saying that to be argumentative with anybody or anything that's been said, but the public does need to understand that. we all equally get a vote. Thank you.
Ann?
This comment is of that, we don't get a vote. Everybody gets a vote at the quorum court. You either approve or you can make or amend things at the quorum court if you don't like them. I don't see what the fuss is about committees and having a budget finance committee. We've done this in the past. Everybody has their input. I just think it's more efficient to do it at the committee level than it is with the whole quorum court. But it's not true. Everybody has a vote. You have the final vote on the budget. So, when you say, oh, we can't vote, everybody does vote, and you do have a say. I mean, everybody's allowed to speak at the committee meetings. So I don't know what the big fuss is about. Thank you.
Joe?
I'm not going to fuss, but I've been through 12 of these, and I think it's the best one we ever done, this last one. There was a lot of infighting and outfighting, but there's also a lot of thinking. And I kept hearing over and over, well, we're just spending all this money. We spent a lot of money as a court, but we also had to come up with $4 million that we weren't used to doing. And we done it without really hurting anybody's feelings. There were several things in there that changed my mind back and forth 2 or 3 times because we had plenty of time to do it. And I would have not have voted for the final budget if we had one of those deals where we just run them through and, well, let's just 3 readings and get them out of here. Because I don't think we were doing right when we do that. I think it's very responsible. We have a real responsibility. And I think we've done the best we could have ever done in the last term, in the last budget. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just say this. The folks that are on the Budget and Finance Committee are saying that we all have a voice. It doesn't really matter. If it doesn't really matter and we all have a voice, then why don't we all have a vote? Whether we all have a vote clearly matters to the judge because she decided to take 8 of us off the committee. So if we all have a voice and we're all there, then we should all have a vote because we will have budget meetings. Whether there are fewer, however the process goes, we will have budget meetings where 8 of us will not have a vote. When it is presented to us for a vote, it will be one budget. One budget is what it will be. The ability to amend it at that point will be very limited. It will be, in my experience, we voted up or down at that point in time. So if we all have a voice, then we should all have a vote. And we should put into real effect what is there in practical effect. And I'll also add that some of us are on more committees than others, too. So clearly some of us have more of a voice than others. Thank you.
Lisa?
Right now, I'm agreeing with Harvey and Joe and Eva. But my question, and it was brought up, that in 2013, Judge, you said that there'd be just no committees, just a quorum court of a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to us what you based your decision to do that as opposed to this year?
I can do like Sebastian County. I can create a quorum court with no committees, and you'll all be on the same committee, and I serve as your chair on every one of them.
Oh, and that's happened in 2013? What happened in 2013?
I don't have any answers. No, but I do know.
Well, what was it? Just trying to get some historical background. In 2013, it was a committee of a whole.
I felt
correct?
like the last budget committee, we started, I think, in June or July, and we met forever, 2 and 3 times a week. Then finally, there at the very end, Candy pulled away and presented the budget and told everybody to back off and presented the budget by herself without having a whole lot of input from anybody. So that's, if she can do it like that, I think that's, but.
I sat out there. You remember?
Yeah, but you remember her doing.
times.
You remember her doing that.
And I remember all of that process. It is my opinion that we work together and more effectively as one united body. and come up with one mind, one purpose, and that is keeping our public's money always in the forefront of what we're doing and what we're allowing to be spent on whatever items that we need it for.
Ann, did you have your hand up? Thank you, Lisa. Ann.
I think this is
Thank you. I wasn't really finished,
counterproductive.
but-
Lisa, were you finished, honey?
That's okay. That's all right. Go ahead, Ann.
She hesitated.
No, I thought you were finished.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I mean, the judge has made her decision until we get we have a piece of legislation that she's following, until we get an attorney general's opinion that says that the ordinance that was passed is legal, then, we'll do the budget like it is now. If that is changed, then things will have to change, if that's what the law is. But until we get those results, I think everybody has pretty well said what they want to say. Several of you want a budget as a whole. I think the committees work fine. If we do a budget of a whole, then, we'll do a budget of a whole and we'll do what's necessary. But I think we're being counterproductive right at this moment. Thank you, Judge.
Lisa, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Judge, for allowing me to just make this one last comment. I want us all to work together because I don't see things the way Ann sees things. She has experience in her county, in her area, in her district. I'm learning, and it is so valuable to me to hear from everybody. And that's why I said, come to the committee meetings. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know and learn, and that's the only way we can do it. And we respect one another, and we will speak respectfully to each other and conduct ourselves in like manner. And that is why I was in favor of the whole, because I learned so much. I don't understand everything else that goes on. I'm learning. But I just want to say I value everybody's opinion, and I want to know. That's why I asked you about what was it in 2013 that made that change, so that way we could understand it a little bit better. And I thank you for the time. And
Thank you,
probably
Lisa.
didn't.
Okay.
I think Rick was next.
I hate it that we're spending so much time on this. Until we hear another decision that we're going to do it a different way, I want everybody to understand, as Chair of Finance, I solicit all of your information, points of interest, whatever you have to offer to bring, just as we've done before. I've been on Committee of the Whole. I've been outside the committee in attendance and submitted ideas that allowed you to consider that, and several of those have become an amendment to an ordinance. I didn't make it because I couldn't, because I was not on the committee. But the committee saw the value. We've already seen it happen once this year. So let's all pull together for the 200,000 plus people in Washington County and do the best job we know how to do collectively when it comes to the third Thursday of every month. This is where we make law. This is where we make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey, did you have something else?
Yes, I do, Judge. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a motion here in a minute. I've heard a lot of comments from the multiple people here about how difficult the budget process was last year. But I don't remember ever hearing anybody on this committee talking about taking $4 million out of the budget before. Everybody knows when you start cutting corners, you've got to pull money out. It gets tough. It's pulling teeth. And that's exactly where we've been, and that's why it was so difficult this past year, not because we had 15 people making contributions, but because there was $4 million coming out of somebody's hide that we had to go ahead and figure out how to do. Now, that's my opinion of how it's going. As far as putting additional burden on Judge to take care of the leadership and budget committee, I don't want to put that on her. But, I'm tickled to death to have Rick go ahead and serve as our budget chairman. No problem with them, the committee at all. I want us to all be involved. So at this point, I'm going to make a motion that we do away with Finance and Budget Committee so that we'll all have a vote in the proceedings of budget and finance and budget.
I feel that
go ahead,
order is out, that motion is out of order because we have a law that says that the judge can appoint the committees and that she has a right to do that. Until we have something other, I think you're out of order.
Can I speak to that, Judge?
Yes.
The Attorney General's opinion on this issue are very clear because I studied them at the beginning of last term when I proposed the current committee structure in January of 2013. This body has the power to decide what committees we have and what committees we don't have. We could rename all our committees. We could have 10 committees. We could have 2 committees. We can do away with a committee. So the motion is entirely proper. In addition, it's our county attorney's position that the ordinance that we passed in 2013 no longer exists. So technically, following that advice, we have no committees right now, none. So think about that. I mean, you can't say that the ordinance expired and therefore the judge has the power under the new statute to decide whether we have a committee of the whole or not if the ordinance is no longer in effect because we don't have a committee. So this body picks what committees we have. The judge appoints the members of those committees, and then we appoint our chairs. That's the procedure that was outlined to me in 2013. Thank you.
I will not recognize your motion.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. The Attorney General's opinion that Justice Bowman supplied, there are a couple of issues with it. I want to have a moment to comment on them. I maintain my position, my advice before. We're not talking about retroactive versus not retroactive. We're talking about state law versus a county ordinance. The state law trumps. That's my opinion. Now, the next question, though, is whether the court maintains its ability to organize itself into committees. It's my opinion that you do, and that's not only by that statute, but by Amendment 55. Now. The question then becomes, if you say we're no longer having Finance Committee, we're not having that committee, what you're going to do with appropriation ordinances and resolutions is a matter of course. What you're going to do with them.
It's going to be normal business that we're going to take care of just like we do all other business that come before the court.
I don't know that it's a point of order, and it's not parliamentary speaking. I don't know that it's a point of order, but it seems to me that it wasn't on the agenda either to dissolve the Finance and Budget Committee. And you did amend, and with due respect, Justice Bowman, you didn't move to amend the agenda ahead of time to put that on the agenda. So while I don't think it's a parliamentary question, I do think it's an agenda question.
Point of information. We make motions all the time that aren't on the agenda.
Absolutely.
I agree with that, Justice Madison. I guess the question I have is if this was a matter of substance, as this one apparently is, why didn't it come before and as a motion to amend the agenda for tonight?
Because I've been working on the details of putting all this information together up until this afternoon.
Okay, Ann?
I'm going to make a motion that we send this to committee, to whichever committee it needs to go to. I don't know. It wouldn't go to Finance. It wouldn't go to Public Works. I'm not sure. But I don't think this is anything. I mean, we've got a state law. state law overrules county ordinances. Until we have an opinion from the Attorney General on whether that state law overrules this, then we can't make a decision. We have an attorney. We have one attorney. We have Steve. And I think we need to listen to what he's saying, whether you agree with it or not at this time. You know, I guess I've tabled the motion, I guess. I don't know.
I have a point of order.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm not making a lot of progress with this book. What are the grounds for a chair to not recognize a motion? Would you help me find that in here?
Well, so I'm dealing with about 4 different things right now. And so let me, the first question is, upon what grounds could she refuse to recognize the motion? She can do that as chair. However, as the body, you can put to a vote whether or not that's correct.
Well,
Now,
I thought there
wait.
had to be grounds for not recognizing.
Wait, yes. Next point. There's a motion from Ann that I'm not sure I got the entire gist of about the Harvey's motion, which would be, I think, to
Put
recommit.
it in, to send it to committee.
Okay. Now,
What committee? I don't know which one. Sure. We're going to take about a 10-minute recess here. Okay, thank you.
I think she thought something was actually passed.
Yeah. She's really a nice lady. I like her.
Voice vote.
Huh?
Voice vote.
Okay, now I'm going to recognize this motion.
Yes, and the second.
Who's second?
Eva. It was Harvey and Eva.
Then I'm going to say all in favor. And
Well,
I'm
we
gonna
have to, but Ann has one to recommit, so you have to pay attention.
I want to send about what committee do I send it back?
You have to tell us. Okay, if I can, I understand there's a, Judge, I understand that you're going to recognize the motion. Is that right?
That's correct. I am.
All right. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Now, there is a motion from Ms. Harbison to recommit. I'm saying all this as a parliamentarian, not as the chair. But I didn't hear a second to that motion. But no, you can have a motion to commit the main motion. Yes, you can. But the question is that I have is, where are you sending it? What's your proposal to send it?
I guess, I guess I'll send it back to finance to decide on, to look at the laws to determine whether the court can vote to change the Finance and Budget Committee to a committee of the whole. And I'll send it back so that we can research the legal aspect of this. Thank you.
There was a motion and a second. Harvey, can I ask you a question? I thought your motion was to dissolve Finance and Budget. Was that?
My comment was that if the judge refuses to allow a committee of the whole where we can all serve with Rick as chair, then I would make a motion to do away with Finance and Budget Committee, requiring all of us to be involved in the process of deciding what's going to happen with all budget and finance issues.
That's what I think I just when you said dissolve, but I said dissolve budget and finance. I think you and I just said the same thing in a different way.
Okay, I think so too. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now we've got Ann's motion, and we've got a second on the floor, and I'm going to do a roll call. Wait just a minute. We've got a couple of
discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Ann's motion is a motion to table and send
No,
back to finance?
send back to finance to research the difference between the law that was passed and what we were given here and which one is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so did you need to ask a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know what happened during the break. I must have been asleep reading Robert's rules. You had failed to recognize J.P. Bowman's motion. Is that still the case? Because that's what I was asking for clarification under Robert's rules. I don't know what happened with that.
No, I'm not. I am. If this works out, we're going to do Ann's vote, and then if not, then I will recognize his motion.
He made his motion before her motion. Was it seconded? I thought it was.
It was, but there is a motion to refer it to committee, which is an order. It's the main motion before the body. A motion to refer it to a committee is an order.
Okay.
And she asked for it to be referred to finance.
So the part I missed was that Madam Judge has recognized
Yes,
J.P.
ma'am.
Bowman's motion. Okay. But we're going to vote on the referral motion. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little confused. We just spent our first committee meetings talking about the duties of the committee, and I don't know how the Finance Committee has it within their responsibilities to conduct legal research on a statutory issue. I'm really surprised at that. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think we're doing exactly what J.P. Bowman's motion is trying to achieve, that we all have a vote in this process. We're sending it to the very committee that he's asking to dissolve. So it's very illogical, and I don't think that the JPs ought to sit around the table and try to decide what the legal answer is. That just doesn't seem like the proper way to handle things. But So I'll vote against that motion.
Any other discussion? Yes, John?
I mean, I'm kind of like Eva on this. I'm a little confused as well. And I mean, I sit on that committee, but I don't think that I'd be comfortable reviewing it. That doesn't make any sense to me. So
Okay.
I can't. I'm not done in. And furthermore, what I don't understand, if we don't have a finance committee, how the process works. So I'd like some clarification. If we dissolve it, where we read this, how does that work? Someone.
You know, we have the attorney here to tell us exactly how that works. But, guys, we deal with issues that come before this court on a regular basis that have no previous assignment. And we all know that we're going to deal with budget and finance issues on a regular basis. There will be issues that come to us, and we will decide as the quorum court what we will do with the situation and then move on from there. Now, I don't know all the legal mumbo-jumbo about this whole situation, but we're going to have to act on these issues as a quorum court anyway, so why can't we work with them to begin with? As far as I'm concerned, it would eliminate one step in the process of an additional committee meeting to get these issues resolved.
Okay, now let's go on, if you
All
don't
right.
mind. Ann?
I want to clarify what my motion is. I want to send it because, I mean, where would you send it? Send it to Steve? Maybe it should be referred to Steve instead of to finance then to do the legal research, because I intend for him to do the legal research and inform the committee as to what that research is, and then they would make a recommendation back to the court of what that finding is. No, we're not attorneys on the finance, but I was a little bit where we referred it to. And I guess what I really need to do is refer it to Steve, our legal counsel, to determine which law and let him report back to us his findings.
Lisa?
I have a question, if I may.
Sure,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Madam Judge. Harvey, you're not are you suggesting that the Finance and Budget Committee be dissolved, or can we work where Rick is already chairman, Bill is vice chair, but yet get all the other quorum members and just all of us have a vote, not changing the structure of voting him chair and he vice chair already? We're not going to dissolve that. Is that what you're saying?
My preference is that we retain the current committee and add the remaining 8 members of the quorum court to that committee, making a committee of the whole. That's my first preference. With refusal of the judge to do that, then my motion was to do away with finance and budget. Therefore, we all will work with dealing with those issues on finance and budget.
But Judge, did you not recognize his motion, though? Yes or no? Yes. So it has been recognized. You will allow it in order for it to stay.
Steve, please.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. The motion on the floor right now is Ms. Harbison's motion to refer the main motion to committee, to finance in particular, and I believe Mr. Cochran seconded it. So what's before you now is whether to send Harvey's proposal back to finance as a not a recommission, but to refer it to committee in the first place. If failing that, you will come and vote on the main motion, which is, as I understand it, to dissolve finance and budget because the judge did not consent to a committee on the whole. And I want to make sure that the principal mover and the second, who I believe is Ms. Madison, agree with my interpretation of what's on the floor as the main motion.
Yes, and I believe J.P. Furman asked sort of what was the plan, or somebody asked what the plan was.
Thank you.
And
I received clarification how that structure will work if we dissolve it.
And I would assume that we would just deal with everything in quorum court. So instead of, we would go through 8.1 through 8.10 here instead of in finance, with the judge as our presiding officer instead of a chair as our presiding officer. So in functional effect, it wouldn't be any different from the committee of the whole that we had, but the judge would be the presiding officer. And because I know the Association of Counties' concern over this issue of whether to have a committee of the whole, it's actually a committee comprised of more than a majority of the membership. And the notion is that if we sit as a committee of the whole or a committee of majority, 8 or more, we're effectively functioning as the quorum court without our presiding officer. So we effectuate the exact intent of the statute that gave the judge the veto power over the committee of the whole by allowing the full quorum court to consider every budget and finance issue with the judge as the presiding officer. That's all that would change. I think we would have to probably decide to have a second quorum court meeting a month in lieu of a finance committee. So I don't think in practical effect it would have much difference. So that's sort of my, as Harvey was voicing his suggestion, that's how I sort of envisioned it would work. I think it would work. I think it would be very effective.
Butch.
May I address Ms. Harbison?
Yes.
And I want you to consider this very carefully. Please, I'm serious. I'll get a lot of laughs out of it, but I'm serious.
Okay.
Would you consider in your, what I'm considering a motion to table until it's researched by committee, amend your motion to it being referred to a subcommittee of the whole?
No, I don't.
Wouldn't get anywhere.
I don't think a subcommittee would help the issue. I think we're just muddying the water more.
And what I'm talking
I said
about,
refer it back to committee, I suppose, you know, can I amend my motion or change my motion?
You can withdraw it, Ann, but
Or withdraw it? Well, I don't want to withdraw it. Really, what I would like to do is that we send it to the county attorney to do the interpretations of both the laws and come back and give us his legal opinion of what's going on.
Judge, may I speak?
Yes, please.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, thank you for your patience in listening to this. I have researched, I've actually read this opinion, this Attorney General's opinion, and I will reduce this opinion, what I'm about to tell you, to writing if that's your preference. Here's my opinion. You as a quorum court have the power as a legislative body to determine what committees you will form. That much is clear to me from the statute. It's also clear to me from the statute that you have the power to dissolve committees if you so choose to do that. Okay? So if you wanted to do away with jail law enforcement tomorrow, Tom, you would be out of a chairmanship, and it's within your power to do that. It is the judge's power and prerogative, the way the law is written, to appoint the members to the committees that exist. Okay? I don't think anything that the legislature did in the last session changes those two fundamental issues. You have the power to organize yourselves into committees. We want a committee to do whatever. And then the judge appoints the members to that committee. Okay? What the committee on the whole statute didn't change was those two fundamental aspects. So, as to the legality, and this gets to Ms. Harbison's question, I believe it's perfectly legal for the court to dissolve the budget committee, if that is your sense. Budget and finance is what's before you. If you want to reconstitute a committee, it would then be upon the judge to appoint the members to that committee. And under the new law, no committee of more than a quorum, 8 in this case, could exist or consist without her consent. All of those things, I think, are perfectly compatible one with another. In other words, there's no reason to consider whether the committee can exist in light of the 2013, I believe, statute. Does that make sense to everybody?
May I? Yes, please.
So if I interpret you correctly, we can vote and the court may dissolve the committee.
Yes.
All right, then the court says we're going to have a finance committee and a budget committee, or a finance and budget committee. Then the judge has the right to appoint those people to that committee.
Yes.
Okay, so if we dissolve it, what are we gaining?
That's not a lawyer question. That's a.
So it's the same thing in that.
I'm not trying to duck it, Justice Harbison. I'm just telling you that that's a policy question for y'all, and I tried to tell you when I came on that policy questions are for you, legal questions are for me.
Okay, let me ask you another legal question. If a committee is not appointed and it just leaves it finance and budget, then is all 15 JPs on the committee?
You don't have a committee then.
We don't have a committee.
It's got a quorum court of the whole.
So if we don't have the committee, then what do we do? The quorum court then settles all the issues? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sue.
I think Ann and I are having the same problems here today. Let me make sure I understand that if J.P. Bowman's motion passes, doing away with finance and budget, the duties that had been assigned to finance and budget would automatically flow to the full court. Is that?
Yes.
And there's not any state statute, whether it's to Act 985 of 2013, that would have any application to that, because
there would
there's
no longer
committee.
be a committee. Yes, ma'am. That's my opinion.
Okay, and the duties would flow to the court, and J.P. Cochran could not be the chair.
If it was the quorum court, no, Judge Edwards is the presiding officer of the court.
Okay, thank you.
Bill.
Okay, there are two issues here. The first issue is that we've all said that the Finance Committee does the heavy lifting. And so I'm a little puzzled as to why we want to dissolve that committee. I mean, what would we gain? Because that's where all the work's done. And we certainly don't have time in the quorum court to do all the other things that we have to do and then discuss finance, because many times the Finance Committee meetings are the longest ones. And here we're talking about making meetings shorter and saying, don't come once a quarter because we don't have time. And now we're looking at having a meeting that's 2 or 3 hours long. The second thing is that by having it the way it is now, whether we like it or not, it's like a lot of things in life. It doesn't matter whether we like it or not. That's the way it is at the moment. And every one of us has an opportunity. If they come, they get to speak. And if something happens and the people on the committee vote against something that you feel strongly about, you can certainly bring that before the quorum court, and we can discuss it then. But we don't have to discuss all the Finance Committee meetings at the regular quorum court meeting. At least we can get rid of part of them by doing them the way we're doing them now. Thank you.
And
if we go to the quorum court level with the finance and budget, then the only time that finance and budget committee can meet is when the county judge calls a meeting. Is that correct?
The majority of you can call a special meeting.
Okay. But the county judge would preside?
Yes.
If she wishes. Okay, thank you.
so now we are ready. Harvey?
Guys, we're making this really complicated. In the event that we don't have a finance and budget committee, the quorum court would have another meeting, just like we were having a budget and finance committee meeting, and go through the process. That's not very complicated. If we do away with finance and budget, we would deal with the issues that come up, just like we do in every other situation. We deal with them in the court, and we make whatever decisions we're going to make, and we move on. I don't have any interest in getting rid of Rick's leadership. All I want is each one of us to be able to fulfill the duties that our people voted for us to do, that we are able to cast a ballot at the time the committee is taking place, the committee meeting is taking place. You know, many things get swept under the rug or pushed aside or forgotten about when there's disagreement in the committee meeting and it comes to full quorum court. You know as well as I do, we come in here and we basically rubber stamp everything the committees have brought to us. It's only when somebody's got a real issue that is digging them like this has me that we come up and bring this kind of thing before the group and ask for rehashing of it. Now, you know, I'd be thrilled if the judge would go ahead and let us have the budget of the whole and move ahead just like we have been, and everybody gets a chance to vote. Barring that, I feel this is the only other recourse I've got, and our attorney has said that we're well within our means to do what we're talking about doing here. And that's what I've done some research to find out about and be sure that there was a solid basis for this. Guys, when the Budget Committee of the Whole met and the final numbers were brought to the quorum court, I believe I heard some of the people who've been on for a long time said that's the first time they'd ever seen a unanimous vote for the budget at the finalization.
Go ahead and say it.
There's a lot to be said for all of us agreeing through the process. So that's all I'm trying to say. I'm saying once again, I would love to see the judge allow us to have a committee of the whole for finance and budget and move on and put this thing behind us. But otherwise, you know, I feel like we've got to go ahead and say we're going to get to vote as individuals on each issue as it comes before the court and carry out our duties in that regard.
Tom?
Judge, I want to call a question.
Madam Chair, before the court is Ms. Harbison's motion, seconded by Mr. Cochran, to refer this to the Finance Committee as it sits now, and I believe that's the vote you have to have now.
Pardon? We've already called for the question, Rick. Huh? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay.
I understand it's out of order, but Ann's motion was to refer it to legal counsel and then bring it back. That has happened.
Yeah.
That has happened. So I'm going to withdraw my second, and that takes it.
That's not out of order, actually.
Okay.
Now, there is not a proper motion on the floor unless there is another second Ann's motion to refer it. There's nothing to call a question on if there's no proper motion on the floor.
I want to make a motion. Or whatever. Now, if I understood Harvey correctly, that his original motion was that Rick remained as chair and that Bill remain as vice chair and that the other people just be added to the committee. That's your request. That's your first option. I'm going to make the motion, or you can make the motion and I will second it, that we add the other people to the committee with Rick and Bill as chair and vice chair.
Two problems. One, that motion is out of order because you have another motion you have a main motion on the floor. Two, that can't happen unless the judge says so by state law.
Okay. Well, okay.
So I think we are ready to vote on Harvey's motion.
Okay.
And then, now who seconded that, Harvey? I did. Okay. We got a motion and a second. I'm not, yes.
Could you just restate the motion for clarification at this point?
To dissolve.
The motion, as I understand it, Mr. Bowman, is to dissolve Budget and Finance. Committee. And we've had a lot of discussion about other ways we're going to handle those ordinances, but we haven't come to a resolution on that. The simple motion on the floor is to dissolve Budget and Finance.
My hopes are that if we pass that motion, that the judge will reconsider and allow the budget to hold.
I understand that, but right now,
You're
the
right.
motion is to dissolve Budget and Finance.
You got it.
Ms.
That's it.
Madison, is that your understanding as well? That's the motion on the floor, Mr. Maxwell.
Bill?
Would you take a friendly amendment and say that what you really want to do, which is what you originally said, and that is we're going to vote on whether or not we want everybody to be on there? Can he not do that at this point? He cannot do that at this point?
Well, that's essentially what Ann just tried to do.
Yeah.
And I believe it's out of order.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to vote.
May we have the questions?
Voice vote on the question, Judge.
Don't take a roll call.
Well, just on the question. You can take a
Okay.
roll call
All
on the
in
main.
favor, say aye.
What are we voting on?
On
I don't
closing
know.
debate, yes.
All in
Closing
favor to
debate.
close debate, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Debate as closed. Now, we are ready to,
Proceed on Harvey's main motion, and Judge, you can do that any way you see fit. Voice vote, roll call, hands up, however.
I want a roll call.
Okay. Rick Cochran. No. Robert Dennis.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
John Furman.
No.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell. Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
No.
Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
No.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
I have 8-6 no, Judge.
So we had six.
At
8 noes and 6.
8 noes, 6 yeses.
So it failed.
Yes.
Carly, it was 8 noes and 6 yeses, is that right?
Yes, sir.
It failed. So where do we go now?
Any other business, Judge?
Any other business before this?
I'm sorry, Ann. I do have other business. I wanted to ask, I had to leave to go to Texarkana for a hearing before we had the discussion at Finance last week about the assessors for the fund, the 633, is that the right number? And
63, I think.
Okay.
It is.
I think we know what I'm talking about.
It's close enough.
And the minutes did not reflect when the error was discovered. The paper reflected that it was in November. I had someone call me very concerned about when it had been discovered and why it wasn't raised at our budget process last year, because I think it would have dramatically affected our budget process more, probably would have made it longer. And so I was curious if, and J.P. Cochran, maybe you know from the meeting, when was the error discovered?
I don't have an exact date, but it was before the end of the year, the way I understand it.
Okay. Judge, do you know when
I knew
the issue
3
was brought
weeks
to your
ago.
attention?
I knew 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was not revealed, as far as I can see, until in 2015 to us.
Okay, well, then I guess I need to do a little more digging, because someone was telling me that it had been talked about as early as July of last year, which was very, very concerning to me, because we'd barely started the budget process. And then I know everyone's tired of me talking about this tax issue, but I'm going to say one more brief thing on it. I spoke with Jan Germany, the infamous IRS tax specialist. Actually, we've just traded voicemails. We haven't actually connected. And I had left her a message and said, I understand you've given Washington County some tax advice, and I wanted to talk to you about that. And she called me back. She said, I didn't give the county any tax advice. I told them what the law is, and she's given me some tax form that she says that I can fill out to basically make sure my mileage is a business expense. So I'm pursuing that. But I'll say this. It's not a waste of anybody's time to make sure that none of us in this county pay $1 more to the federal government than we have to. Because if you think about the payroll tax of $600 per year, plus the $2,000 to $3,000 a year that this body collectively will pay in income taxes to the federal and state governments that we might not have to. So Our judge may have given up on the issue, but folks, I have not, and I will continue to work on it. And I'm going to talk to Miss Germany hopefully tomorrow and get some resolution on this for all of us, because I'm for paying less taxes. Thank you. Yeah, I'll share the form. I got to find out if it's right.
Is there any other, Carly?
Hi. I was just curious, is anybody else having issues accessing the agendas online from the webpage?
It's not access.
No, no one is? Is it, it's just them?
Oh, I'm getting it, yeah.
Madam Judge.
Tom, here, just a minute. Tom has something.
Yeah, public comment.
Hang on, we're going to have public comment, but Tom's got something.
Oh, I just wanted to thank everybody for their prayers and thoughts while I was in the hospital last week. I want you to know how much it's truly appreciated. Thank you very much.
And you couldn't got by without us. Okay, well, I've asked, do I have any public comments tonight? Yes, ma'am. Come to the chair up here. Please identify yourself and let us know what you got on your mind.
I'm Christine Keller.
Thank you.
I'm Christine Keller. I live in Lincoln, in western Washington County, in Joel's district. And I missed the part where I was supposed to speak about the fire dues thing when that was on the agenda. I think there was supposed to be a public comment then, and I must have missed when I was supposed to do that. Anyway, I've been very concerned about special elections for a long time, and it's not just the cost, it's the fact that we have normally the voter turnout is about 2 to 8%, and it's normally the firemen and their friends and family that turn out and everyone else doesn't know about it. It's not just them, it's anytime there's a special election, there's not enough voter turnout to really be representative of the people who are going to be paying the tax. And we had the special election, the same thing in Lincoln, and the bill or the ballot said that it was about voluntary tax, but when I got my tax bill, it wasn't showing up as voluntary. And my friend in Prairie Grove, same thing. He's got farmland. It doesn't have a structure, and his taxes are showing up delinquent, even though it's supposed to be a voluntary tax. Now, that's a concern because it's been dragging on for months and still showing up delinquent. So I'm having a question whether it's a tax or it's a voluntary dues. So, and Joel's concern that he brought up, I thought that was interesting about there's a bill right now to try to make it legal for them, the quorum courts, to collect these taxes. So obviously they're not supposed to be doing that now. So I'm confused about that. But there's reasons that some people in rural parts of the county choose not to pay those fire dues, and they should have the right to choose not to and not have it levied against or a lien against their property. So also, if the people who are going to be voting on it, I want to know if they're the ones who are going to be paying for it, because there's been some question about that. My friend in Prairie Grove thought that the people in the city were voting for him in the county. So that was all. I'm just concerned about special elections.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
You paid your property tax.
Right.
But you chose not to pay the fire dues. And you said that they got you for a delinquent charge?
That's my friend, yes. I ended up paying mine, but I don't like that, having to pay that, because I had paid my property or my house insurance.
Did you go to the collector to find out about this?
Yes, he did.
What was the outcome of that?
He sent an email with no response. We sent a second email with no response. And so, I don't know.
Do you know anything about this?
But I'm just knowing, when I got my property tax bill, it doesn't show voluntary. There's no way to opt out.
Judge, I can answer some of Ms. Keller's questions. And I'm happy to visit with you one-on-one.
Okay.
I don't have all the answers, but I have some, and I'd be tickled to visit with you after the meeting, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
We appreciate you very much. Any other public comments? Yes, sir. Come forward and identify yourself.
I'm Tony Blansett from Springdale. And going off on this, on the collecting of dues, et cetera, from if they actually do pay this. There needs to be a little clarification, because I sort of looked into the 501c3 organizations, and there could be a very big issue about them keeping their taxable or tax-free status. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax lawyer. I don't know that much, but it seems the way the law was, or the tax code was written for 501c3 organization, may conflict with that. So I would ask that we actually look into that, because the last thing we want to do, like Ms. Madison said, is we don't want to give any more extra money to the federal government. Let's keep it here in Washington County. Thank you.
That was Joel's question for me.
Okay, so we'll research that.
That's a question he asked me to research.
Anything else? Yes, Butch.
And I thought Steve might be going to comment on it. That tax that the collector will be collecting for the volunteer fire department is a volunteer tax. Anyone can come to the collector to pay their taxes and tell them to leave that off. And they will not be, they won't
penalized.
Be considered delinquent on their taxes. It's still volunteer. The state legislature has not enabled county collectors to force anyone to pay a firehouse fee.
Thank you, Butch. I know you are familiar with a lot of that. So, Joel?
This is just simply anecdotal, but I've had some constituents tell me that they have elected not to do that, and they are showing as delinquent taxes. That may be a breakdown in the system. It may not be correct, or it may be just a misinterpretation. I don't know. Have not been able to verify that personally. I just know that's what's anecdotally been served up.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
I think we need to have the collector come and meet with us at the next finance meeting and discuss this, because that's not what I heard from him today, that you're not delinquent on your taxes, you're delinquent on your fire dues. And he said that they could actually assess a lien on your property. So I think we need clarification on this and need it quickly. Our citizens deserve no less.
Steve?
Well, this was the question I was going to answer for Ms. Keller privately, but it's out here in front of everybody. I've read that statute as well, and the statute does talk about liens. It talks about levies. It talks about foreclosing on the liens if you don't pay the fire department dues. Now, having said that, I asked the go-to person I know about the fire departments in Washington County, that being John Luther. He says they've never done that, but what Ms. Keller is telling, that no fire department's ever tried to go foreclose on somebody's property because they didn't pay. But if somebody's trying to foreclose on my property, it doesn't sound, I can understand why it would not sound voluntary. Okay? So I think that has to be clarified. They're not taxes. They're fire department dues, and that there's a difference. But they can act under the statute as a lien on property.
Rick?
A follow-up question. If this, in fact, turns out that it is a dues or fee but not a tax, can we, as a court, put together something in an ordinance form that stipulates how that is to be presented to the taxpayer? And a lot of times it's the mortgagor that is paying that.
Yeah.
Because if you have a loan on your home, they see that, and at least they would know whether or not to pay that amount per our instruction as a homeowner.
Yes, Joel.
And I think a couple of folks have mentioned this, but not just the lien against your property. I know obviously that's going to be a major concern should it come to that, and that be a possibility. But there's also the just the negative of having your name published as being delinquent.
I agree.
Not everybody's going to make that distinction between you're delinquent on your taxes, you're delinquent on your fire dues. You just look delinquent in the public eye.
I'll answer your question.
Hate to ask another question and keep us here longer, but just recently happened to me on a fire. So if you do not pay your dues and you have a fire, the liability that you are then faced would be enormous, or could be enormous, or is it? I see a no over there. So be sure before you don't pay something like that, be sure you know that you're protected or not, because I would imagine that I would have a $20,000 bill at my door right now if I didn't,
I was on the board of directors at Tawnytown Fire Department. That was $300. So it's not that enormous. Now, some of the others may be more than that. But we had a $100 lifetime membership and like $40 a year. So, why do you want to pay that when it's only going to cost you $300 to get your house put out?
Two things to that. One is I have confirmed with several insurance companies, and I know Steve funneled it up to Risk Management Nelson, and I didn't catch his last name, but there is a definite two things. One is the fire department will come out regardless, and that's part of the statute. Number two, if you have a deductible on your homeowner's insurance, when you pay your deductible, and I know this not just from confirming, but I actually had a personal fire about 7 or 8 years ago. It worked exactly like this. I was not a member. They sent the bill. The insurance company paid the bill. My deductible didn't change. I paid my portion, so I was not at any more financial risk, in my understanding, from not an encompassing survey, but checking with 3 insurance companies, national that are here locally. That is the case. You're not in any more financial risk if you're not a member. And Nelson, I think, confirmed that it is somewhat, the constituents are paying twice for the same single coverage.
I'm just sitting here listening. There's 15 people sitting here, and he's had a fire, and I've had a fire in this century. Maybe you want to pay that.
Very quickly, while I was a member of the Weddington Fire District before Fayetteville annexed me, their dues at $65 was only half of what I saved by joining their association and getting a homeowner rate reduction. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a quick question, just so the people who came to speak on this issue may know. We didn't vote on J.P. Harbison's West Fork. It's third reading. It'll be up next time, and there'll be public comment available then before we vote on it. Yes. Okay, good. I kind of got it. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?